They say you can't outrun your past. I believed that once. Believed it so hard I stopped trying. I let the neon lights of New Arcturus swallow me whole. Let the rain-soaked streets become my confessional, and the bottle my only honest companion. I was done being a soldier. Done with the Corps, done with the war, done with the screaming faces of kids who died because I gave the order. I came to this station at the edge of everything to disappear, to become nobody. Then she screamed, and every instinct I thought I'd drowned came roaring back like a freight train. One moment changed everything. One choice in a grimy alley behind a noodle shop. I didn't know she was royalty. Didn't know that the fragile Calthrine engineer I pulled out of that nightmare was the daughter of the Ascendancy's Grand Marshal. Didn't know that defending her would drag me before the most powerful war council in 3 sectors. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know how a washed-up human merc ended up in the Crystal Spire, standing before alien generals who could glass planets with a word? You want to know what it costs to be human in a galaxy that sees us as violent, impulsive, barely controlled animals? Then let me tell you how it really was. New Arcturus station floats in the Kepler abyss like a dirty jewel, all chrome and rust, promise and despair. It's a free port, technically. That means no government, no law except what the syndicates enforce, and no questions about where you came from or what you did before you arrived. Humans built it 70 years ago during the expansion, back when we were still trying to prove we belonged out here among species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. The Calthrine Ascendancy tolerated us. Barely. They saw us as useful labor, aggressive mercenaries, crude mechanics who could fix things with hammers and curses when their elegant tech failed. We were the ones who did the dirty work, the jobs too dangerous or too demeaning for the refined, crystalline-skinned aristocrats who ruled a third of known space. I didn't care about politics anymore. I'd seen enough of what politics did to people. The rain never stopped on level 47, where I'd rented a coffin apartment smaller than a supply closet. Atmospheric processors recycled the moisture constantly, and the runoff created permanent drizzle in the lower habitation rings. It smelled like oil, fried synth meat, and desperation. I loved it. Nobody looked at you twice down here. Nobody asked questions. I worked salvage 3 days a week, hauling scrap from the breaker yards where old ships went to die. The rest of the time I drank at Chang's, a bar wedged between a black market cyberware clinic and a brothel that catered to 7 different species. Chang was human, ex-Navy, and he didn't talk much. Perfect. The nightmares came every time I closed my eyes. Ganymede, the Proxima Front. The names of 23 soldiers I'd led into an ambush because intelligence was bad and command didn't care. I could still smell the burning, still hear the screaming, still feel the weight of dog tags I'd collected from bodies, so I didn't sleep much. On the night it happened, I was 4 drinks in, watching the rain streak down the bar's filthy windows. The local feeds played on a cracked screen above the liquor, something about trade disputes, ascendancy fleet movements, the usual noise. A Calthrine sat 2 stools down, his crystalline skin gleaming faintly blue under the bar lights. His elegant features arranged in an expression of distaste. He wore expensive clothes, the kind that cost more than I'd make in a year of salvage work. "You're human," he said, like it was an accusation. I didn't look at him. Last I checked. Your kind doesn't belong here. This station was better before the infestation. Chang glanced at me, one hand moving toward the shock stick under the bar. I shook my head slightly. Not worth it. I'll keep that in mind, I said, and turned back to my drink. The Calthrine made a sound like breaking glass, their version of a sneer, and left. Chang refilled my glass without asking. "You've got more restraint than you used to," he said quietly. "I'm tired," I told him. Just tired. That was 3 hours before everything changed. I left Chang's around midnight, collar turned up against the rain, hands in my jacket pockets. The streets of level 47 were crowded despite the hour. Neon signs advertised pleasures in 15 languages. Street vendors sold skewers of things I couldn't identify. A group of Torven dock workers pushed past, their forearms gesturing wildly as they argued in their clicking tongue. I'd taken this route 1,000 times. Down Meridian Way, cut through the alley behind the noodle shop, across the plaza where the broken fountain sat, then up the access stairs to my block. Muscle memory. I wasn't paying attention. That's when I heard her scream. It cut through the rain and the city noise like a laser, sharp and terrified, came from the alley. I froze for half a second, every part of me saying, "Not your problem. Keep walking. You're not a soldier anymore." But my feet were already moving. The alley was dark, lit only by a single failing light panel. 3 figures had someone pressed against the wall. 2 Vrel, hulking reptilian bruisers with scarred scales and metal-reinforced fists, and a human in gang colors I didn't recognize. They had a Calthrine pinned between them, small and delicate compared to the Vrel. Her crystalline skin flickering with patterns I knew meant fear. "Just give us the case, princess," the human was saying. He had a blade, the kind with a monomolecular edge that could cut through bone. "Don't make this messy." The Calthrine clutched a metal case to her chest. Her robes were torn. One of her arms, Calthrine had 4, 2 primary and 2 secondary, hung at an odd angle. "Broken. I cannot," she said, voice trembling but defiant. "The research is, please, I'm just an engineer. I don't have money." One of the Vrel hit her. Casual, almost lazy, she crumpled. "I didn't think, didn't plan." I was across the alley before I knew I'd moved, grabbing the human's knife hand and twisting. The blade clattered to the ground. He spun, eyes wide, and I hit him in the throat, not hard enough to kill, hard enough to drop him. The first Vrel turned, slower than I expected. I was smaller than him, a foot shorter and probably 100 pounds lighter, but I'd fought Vrel before. Their center of gravity was high, and they protected their heads instinctively. I went low, sweeping his legs. He crashed down. The second Vrel was faster. His fist caught me in the ribs and I felt something crack. Pain exploded through my side. I rolled with it, using the momentum to get behind him, and grabbed one of the metal bars scattered in the alley. Construction debris. I swung for his knee. He went down roaring. The human was getting up, clutching his throat. I kicked him in the head. He didn't get up again. The first Vrel was back on his feet, pulling a plasma cutter, improvised weapon, illegal as hell. But nobody cared in the abyss. I raised my hands. "Walk away," I said. "It's over." He laughed, a sound like rocks grinding. "You're dead, human. You're all—" The plasma cutter never fired. The Calthrine engineer, the one they'd been beating, had grabbed the dropped monomolecular blade. She'd moved so fast I barely saw it. The blade went into the Vrel's back, through the gap in his scales near the spine. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Silence. Rain. The distant sound of the city. I looked at her. She looked at me. Her skin was flickering through a dozen colors I didn't recognize, and she was shaking. The blade fell from her secondary hand. "I've never—" She started, then stopped, swallowed. "I've never killed anyone before." "First time's the hardest," I said, which was a lie. It never got easier. "You okay?" She looked down at her broken arm, at the case she still clutched, at the 3 bodies in the alley. "I don't know." "Can you walk?" She nodded. "Then we need to leave, now, before their friends show up." I picked up my bar, tossed the blade into a recycler chute, and grabbed her good arm. We moved fast, out of the alley, into the crowd. Nobody looked at us. On New Arcturus, you learned not to see things. I took her to Chang's. He took one look at us and locked the door, flipping the sign to closed. "You're bleeding," she said, pointing to my side where the Vrel had hit me. "I'll live." I sat her down at the bar. "What's your name?" "Xylith." She said it like it hurt. Xylith Canserath. I froze. Canserath. The Serath line. The Grand Marshal's bloodline. Oh, I said. Oh, hell. Chang set a bottle on the bar. You just saved a princess, Marcus. You know what that means? I did. It meant my quiet life was over. It meant every syndicate, every gang, every bounty hunter looking to make a name would come for her. For us. We need to get you to your people, I said to Xylith. She shook her head violently. No, not yet. They were waiting for me. Someone knew I'd be in that sector. Someone told them. Inside job. It has to be. Her skin flickered again, fear patterns mixing with something else. Anger. The research I'm carrying, it's classified, military grade. Only the council knew I was transporting it personally. I looked at Chang. He looked at me. You can stay here tonight, he said. Back room. But tomorrow, Marcus, you need to figure this out. Because if the Ascendancy finds out you're harboring their princess... I know. I helped Xylith to the back room, a storage area with a cot Chang used when he worked late. She collapsed onto it, still clutching the case. I could see her better now in the steady light. She was young, maybe equivalent to mid-20s for a human. Her crystalline skin was pale lavender, marked with the intricate patterns that denoted her status. Her robes were expensive, even torn, woven with threads that caught light in ways fabric shouldn't. Thank you, she said quietly. You didn't have to help me. Yeah, I did. Why? She looked up at me with eyes like cut amethyst. Your people and mine. We're not allies. We're barely civil. Why would a human risk his life for a Calthrine? I thought about that. Thought about all the reasons I shouldn't have stopped. All the smart, logical reasons to keep walking. Because you screamed, I said finally. And I still remember what it means to give a damn. She studied me for a long moment. You were military. I can see it in how you move, how you fight. Yeah. Why did you leave? I touched the cracked ribs through my jacket, felt the familiar ache that never quite went away. Same reason everyone leaves. I ran out of things worth dying for. And yet you almost died in that alley. For me, for someone you don't know. I didn't have an answer for that, not one that made sense. Chang knocked on the door. Marcus, you need to see this. The main bar's screen was showing local news. My stomach dropped. The footage was grainy, security camera angle from across the street, but clear enough. It showed the alley. Showed me fighting the Vrel. Showed Xylith killing the third one. The headline scrolled across the bottom, Human Mercenary Attacks. Calthrine Citizens. Princess Xylith missing. Ascendancy demands answers. They flipped it. Chang said quietly, made you the aggressor. I watched myself on screen, watched the fight, watched everything I'd done to save her turned into evidence of human violence. Typical. They'll come for you, Xylith said from the doorway. She'd followed us out. They'll say you kidnapped me, assaulted those workers. They'll use this to justify whatever they want. Let them come. You don't understand. Her skin was flickering again, faster now. Fear and something else. Determination. Those weren't random thugs. The human was wearing obsidian circle colors. Their syndicate. They work for the council members who want the war to restart. What war? She looked at me like I was crazy. The war that's been brewing for 6 months, the territorial disputes, the human colonies in the outer march that the Ascendancy claims, the war my father has been trying to prevent. Pieces clicked together, and you're carrying research that could change the balance. Weapons data, new shield harmonics that could neutralize human plasma weapons. She held up the case. If the war faction on the council gets this, they'll use it. They'll provoke humanity into a conflict we can't win. Millions will die. I looked at Chang. He was already shaking his head. Don't, he said. Marcus, don't do what you're thinking. But I was already doing it, already making the choice that would change everything. We're going to the Ascendancy Embassy, I said. We're going to deliver that case to your father personally, and we're going to tell him exactly who tried to kill his daughter. Xylith stared at me. They'll arrest you the moment we arrive. Everything on that broadcast. I know, but it's the only way to keep you alive. And maybe, just maybe, stop your war. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. You're insane, Chang said. You know that, right? Yeah, I said. But I'm sober for the first time in a year, and that's got to count for something. We left at dawn, before the station fully woke. Xylith wore a maintenance worker's jumpsuit. Chang scrounged up, and I'd wrapped her distinctive hands in work gloves. We moved through the service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where security would be looking. The Ascendancy Embassy sat in the spire, the station's highest level, where atmosphere was clean and gravity was Earth standard. I'd never been up there, never had reason to. It was a different world. Marble floors instead of grating, the scent of something floral instead of oil and ozone, soft lighting instead of harsh neon. We looked like exactly what we were. Two people from the abyss who didn't belong. Security stopped us at the main entrance, 4 guards in ceremonial armor that probably cost more than the entire Level 47 habitat ring. They took one look at us, and their weapons came up. State your business, the lead guard said in clipped, formal Caltrine. His skin was military gray, marked with service scars. Xylith pulled off the gloves, pulled back her hood. Her skin blazed with royal patterns, unmistakable even to me. I am Xylith Khan Serath, 3rd Engineer of the Crown Research Division and daughter of Grand Marshal Koreth Khan Serath, she said, and her voice had changed completely. No longer the frightened engineer from the alley. This was command. This was royalty. This human saved my life. He will be treated with the respect due a defender of the crown. Take us to my father, now. The guards didn't move for 5 seconds, then they snapped to attention so fast it was almost comical. We got an escort, 6 guards, weapons drawn, walking us through corridors that seemed designed to make you feel small. The ceilings soared 30 feet up, covered in murals depicting Calthrine conquests across a dozen worlds. Our footsteps echoed on floors polished to mirror brightness. Xylith walked like she owned the place. I guess she kind of did. They took us to a conference room with windows overlooking the station's exterior. I could see the Kepler abyss beyond the shields, that impossible darkness between stars where light went to die. Ships drifted past, tiny and fragile against that void. Wait here, the lead guard said. He looked at me like I was a bomb that might go off. Do not move, do not touch anything, do not speak unless spoken to. Then they left us alone. Xylith set the case on the table, her hands trembling slightly. Now that the adrenaline was wearing off, she looked exhausted. Her broken arm hung limp, and I could see pain patterns flickering across her skin. You need a medic, I said. I need to see my father first. She turned to face me. Marcus, that is your name, yes, I nodded. When he arrives, let me speak first. Don't argue, don't defend yourself. The council will be watching through feeds, and anything you say can be twisted. Trust me to handle this. Your Highness, with respect, I'm pretty sure I'm already screwed. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Then we're both screwed, but at least we'll face it together. The door opened. He filled the doorway, and I mean that literally. Grand Marshal Koreth Khan Serath stood 7 feet tall, built like a Calthrine version of a tank. His skin was deep crimson marked with gold patterns that denoted not just royalty, but military command at the highest level. He wore armor, not ceremonial, but combat grade, scarred from actual use. His eyes, 4 of them, arranged in a diamond pattern on his angular face, locked onto his daughter. "Xylith," he said, and his voice was like controlled thunder. She straightened, meeting his gaze. "Father, I'm alive. This human is why." His attention shifted to me. I felt the weight of it, the assessment. This was a soldier who'd commanded fleets, won campaigns, crushed rebellions. I'd faced down plenty of hostile commanders in my time, but none of them had been 800 years old and personally responsible for the subjugation of 6 species. "Name," he said. "Marcus Chen, former sergeant, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, Earth Alliance." "You fought at Proxima." It wasn't a question. Somehow he knew. "Yes, sir." "Human tactics. Aggressive. Costly. Your commanders threw you at our defensive positions like ammunition." He stepped into the room, and the guards moved with him, forming a wall. 17,000 human casualties in 6 months. For what? 3 mining worlds you couldn't hold. Old anger stirred in my chest. For the same thing your people fight for, Marshal. Because command ordered it and soldiers obey. And yet you're here, not there. You abandoned your post. I completed my tour. Left with honor. Barely. What happened after wasn't abandonment. It was survival. His skin flickered. I was learning to read the patterns now. That was surprise. Maybe respect. "My daughter says you saved her life. The security footage says you assaulted 3 Calthrine citizens and kidnapped a member of the royal family." "The footage is incomplete, Father," Xylith cut in. "Marcus fought 3 syndicate operatives who were trying to steal classified research and likely kill me. He sustained injuries defending me. He then brought me here, knowing he'd face arrest because he believed it was the right thing to do." Korith looked between us. "And the research?" Xylith opened the case. Inside were data crystals, thousands of them, arranged in precise geometric patterns. Even I could tell they were valuable just from how they caught the light. "The shield harmonics you commissioned," she said, "complete, ready for implementation. Councillor Threx's agents tried to take them." The temperature in the room dropped. The guards tensed. Koreth's skin went perfectly still, and I realized that was the Calthrine equivalent of rage. "You're certain it was Threx?" The human operative wore obsidian circle colors. They only work for Threx, and only 3 people knew about my transport route. You, me, and Threx. That's not proof. It's enough for suspicion. Enough to investigate. She paused. Enough to wonder why the security footage was edited before being released to the media. Who has access to embassy surveillance, Father? Another long silence. Koreth's eyes were doing something I didn't understand, moving independently, focusing on different points in the room, calculating, planning. "You," he said, looking at me, "Marcus Chen. Why did you intervene?" Here it was. The question I'd been asking myself since it happened. "Because she screamed," I said. "Because I'm tired of pretending I don't see things. Because—" I stopped, trying to find words that didn't sound insane. "Because I've watched too many people die for politics and pride and territory that doesn't matter. And I'm done with it. I'm done with the calculus that weighs lives against profit. She needed help. I could help. That's all there was to it. That's all." His voice was skeptical. "You knew who she was, knew what helping her might cost. You still chose to act." "I didn't know who she was until after. I just knew she was in trouble." He studied me for a long moment. "You're either the bravest human I've met, or the stupidest." "Probably both, sir." Something that might have been amusement crossed his features. "The council has demanded your arrest. They want you charged with assault, kidnapping, and conspiracy to steal classified military research. They're already drafting the charges." My stomach sank. "I understand. They want a trial, a public one. They want to use you as an example of human aggression, human unreliability. They want to justify the military expansion they've been pushing for months. He walked to the window, looking out at the station, the darkness beyond. And I'm going to give them exactly what they want. Xylith's skin blazed with shock patterns. Father, you can't. I'm going to bring Marcus Chen before the full war council tomorrow at dawn. I'm going to let them question him, let them attempt to break him. He turned back, and now I saw what was in his eyes. Strategy. Because I believe that when they do, they'll see exactly what I see, a human who acted with more honor than half the nobles in that chamber. And perhaps, just perhaps, it will remind them what honor actually means. That's a hell of a gamble, sir, I said quietly. You're betting my life on the council suddenly growing a conscience. No, I'm betting on them underestimating you. They'll expect a violent, stupid brute. They'll expect you to break, to lash out, to confirm every prejudice they hold. His skin went very still again. But you won't, because you're not what they think humans are. You're what they fear humans might be, disciplined, principled, and absolutely unwilling to quit. You don't know me, Marshal. You don't know what I've done, what I've survived. I know you walked through fire to bring my daughter home. I know you're standing here knowing you might die for it. That tells me everything I need to know. He gestured to the guards. Medical will see to your injuries. You'll be given quarters in the secure wing. Tomorrow at dawn, you'll stand before the council. And if they don't see what you want them to see, then you'll be executed, and the war your people can't win will begin within a month. He said it flatly, without emotion. So I suggest you be very convincing. The guards took me to medical first. The doctor was Calthrine, old with skin gone almost white with age. She looked at my cracked ribs, the bruises, the old scars that covered me like a map of every bad decision I'd ever made, and made a sound I couldn't interpret. You collect damage like others collect medals, she said in accented standard. Comes with the job. Which job? Soldier or fool? She pressed a scanner to my side. E3 fractured ribs, extensive soft tissue damage, signs of chronic malnutrition, and what appears to be neural damage consistent with combat drug withdrawal. When did you leave the military? 14 months ago. And you've been poisoning yourself ever since. Drinking, yes. To sleep, to forget. It wasn't a question. Your liver is struggling, human. Another year of this and you won't need the council to kill you. You'll do it yourself. I didn't have an answer for that. She sealed my ribs with something that hurt worse than the original injury, injected me with a cocktail that made my head spin, and sent me off with instructions I immediately forgot. The quarters were nicer than anywhere I'd lived in 2 years. Real bed, private bathroom, actual food in a small kitchen unit. There was even a window, though it looked out onto another part of the station rather than the abyss. I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing the alley, the fight, Xylith's face when she'd killed the Varel. Kept thinking about the council, about standing before beings who saw humanity as barely better than trained animals. Around midnight, someone knocked. Xylith stood in the doorway, her arm now in a proper brace, wearing fresh robes. May I come in? It's your building, Your Highness. Xylith, she corrected. Please. After what we've been through, I think we're past titles. I let her in. She moved to the window, looking out at the lights of the station. I've never been down there, she said quietly. The lower levels, we're taught they're dangerous, full of criminals and worse. That proper Calthrine don't associate with the dregs who inhabit them. They're not wrong about the dangerous part, but they're wrong about the people. She turned to face me. You live down there, work there. You could afford better with your military pension, couldn't you? Probably. But down there, nobody asks questions. Nobody cares what you did before. You can just exist. Is that what you want? To just exist? I thought about that. About the year I'd spent doing exactly that, going through motions, waiting for nothing. I don't know anymore, I admitted. I thought I did. Thought I wanted peace. Quiet. A chance to forget. I touched my side where the ribs were healing. Turns out you can't forget by pretending nothing matters. My father saw something in you. I saw it too, in that alley. You're not just a soldier, Marcus. You're someone who still believes in something, even if you've forgotten what it is. Yeah? What's that? That people are worth saving. Even people like me. Even when it costs you everything. She moved closer, and I could see the patterns on her skin clearly now. They were beautiful in a way I'd never noticed before, complex and shifting, a language written in light. The council will try to break you tomorrow, she said. They'll question your motives, suggest you had ulterior purposes. They'll bring up Proxima, every human atrocity, every reason we should fear and contain your species. And they'll expect you to get angry, to lash out, to prove them right. I know. So don't give them what they expect. Show them what humans actually are when you're not being backed into corners and treated like threats. She placed one of her secondary hands on my arm. The touch was light, strange, almost electric. Show them what I saw in that alley. Someone who fights, not because he enjoys it, but because he can't stand by and watch someone suffer. You're putting a lot of faith in me, Xylith. I'm just a burned-out grunt who couldn't save his own squad. What makes you think I can save anything? Because you already did. You saved me, not for reward, not for recognition, just because it needed doing. Her skin flickered with something warm, golden. That's not nothing, Marcus. That's everything. After she left, I stood at the window for a long time, watching the station turn through its artificial night. Somewhere down there was Chang's bar, my coffin apartment, the alley where everything had changed. The life I'd built out of nothing, out of running away. I thought about Koreth's words, about being what they feared humans might be. I'd been a soldier for 8 years, had led men into hell and watched them die, had followed orders I knew were wrong because that's what soldiers did, had come home to a galaxy that saw humans as useful barbarians at best, dangerous animals at worst, and I'd believed it, believed we were too violent, too impulsive, too young a species to matter among the ancient empires. We'd barely had FTL for a century. The Calthrine had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. What did we have to offer except muscle and desperation? But in that alley, I hadn't thought about any of that. Hadn't calculated odds or considered politics. I'd just moved, just acted, just done what seemed right. Maybe that was what made us human, not the violence, not the aggression, but the stubborn, stupid refusal to let people suffer when we could do something about it. The Calthrine had built a civilization on logic, order, careful calculation of cost and benefit. They'd conquered worlds through strategy and overwhelming technological superiority. They were brilliant, efficient, and utterly certain of their own supremacy, and they couldn't understand why a random human would risk death for a stranger. I smiled in the darkness. Maybe that was our edge. Not better weapons or faster ships or smarter tactics. Just the willingness to be ridiculous, to do the impossible because nobody told us it couldn't be done. Tomorrow, I'd stand before the War Council. Tomorrow, they'd try to break me, to prove I was everything they believed about humanity. Tomorrow, I'd probably die or wish I had. But tonight, I'd done something right. For the first time in a year, I'd done something that mattered. I slept without nightmares for the first time since Proxima. The guards came at dawn. Different ones. These wearing full combat armor and carrying weapons that could punch through starship hulls. They escorted me through the embassy in silence, down corridors that grew progressively more ornate until we reached a set of doors that looked like they belonged in a cathedral. The War Council chamber. The doors opened, and I stepped into history. The chamber was circular, vast, rising up 3 stories with balconies at each level where observers watched in silence. The floor was polished stone that looked like captured starlight. At the center sat a round table, and around it was seated 12 Calthrine in robes that marked them as the highest military command in the ascendancy. Grand Marshal Korath sat at the head. To his right was Xylith, her arm still braced, her skin flickering with barely controlled anxiety. The others I didn't know, but I could read their body language well enough. Most looked at me with contempt, a few with curiosity. One, an ancient Calthrine with skin gone almost black with age, watched me with what might have been pity. At Korath's left sat a Calthrine in deep purple robes marked with silver. His skin patterns were aggressive, hostile. This had to be Threx. "Bring the human forward," Korath said. The guards walked me to a spot in front of the table. There was no chair. I was meant to stand through this. Fine. I'd stood through worse. "Marcus Chen," Korath's voice echoed through the chamber. "You are accused of assault against 3 Calthrine citizens, kidnapping of a royal family member, and conspiracy to steal classified military research. How do you answer these charges?" Every eye in the chamber was on me. Feeds were probably broadcasting this across the station, maybe across the sector. This was my moment to either save myself or condemn my entire species. I thought about all the things I could say, the arguments, the justifications, the evidence. Instead, I told the truth. I'm guilty of assault. I attacked 3 individuals in an alley behind a noodle shop on level 47. I broke bones. I drew blood. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Threx's skin blazed with satisfaction. "The human admits his crime," he said. "I move for immediate, I'm not finished, counselor." I kept my eyes on Korath. I assaulted them because they were beating a defenseless engineer, because they had her pinned against a wall, broken her arm, and were threatening her life, because they were trying to steal classified research that could shift the balance of power in this sector. And because when I got there, I didn't see a Calthrine or a human or any species. I saw someone who needed help. "A convenient story," Threx said coldly. "You expect us to believe you risked your life out of altruism? That a human, a species known for violence and aggression, acted purely from noble motives? I don't expect you to believe anything, counselor. I'm just telling you what happened." Another counselor spoke, an older female with silver patterns. The security footage shows a carefully edited version of events," I interrupted. "It shows me fighting. It doesn't show what came before. It doesn't show 3 armed operatives beating your princess. It doesn't show them demanding she hand over classified research, and it conveniently doesn't show any identifying marks on the attackers." "You claim the footage was altered?" Threx's voice dripped with disdain. "By whom? For what purpose?" "By someone who wanted to turn a rescue into an international incident. Someone who benefits from increased tensions between humans and the ascendancy. Someone who knew about the research transport and made sure the right people were in that alley at the right time." The chamber exploded with voices. Korath let it go for exactly 10 seconds, then raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. "These are serious accusations, human. You're suggesting someone on this council conspired to assassinate my daughter." "I'm suggesting someone wanted that research and didn't care who died to get it. Your daughter is alive because I intervened. The research is secure because she fought back. And now I'm standing here, being tried for saving her life because someone very powerful wants me silenced." Threx stood, his skin blazing. "This is outrageous. The human invents conspiracy theories to cover his crimes. I demand, Councillor Threx, Koreth's voice cut through like a blade. How did you know the human was in level 47 that night? Threx froze. The security footage. The footage shows an alley. Level 47 has 17,000 alleys, yet within minutes of the incident, you had identified the specific location and filed charges. How? The guards reported to me first, as protocol demands. Yet you filed formal charges 30 seconds after the incident was logged, before I was even informed. Koreth stood, and the temperature in the room dropped. Explain, Counselor. I watched Threx's skin patterns shift through a dozen colors. Fear, anger, calculation. He was trapped, and he knew it. I had informants, he said finally. The human has been under surveillance. We've suspected him of what? I asked. I work salvage. I drink at a bar. I live in a coffin apartment and barely make rent. What exactly would I be doing that requires surveillance from a council member? You're a veteran of Proxima, a trained killer. Your presence on this station is a security risk. There are 40,000 human veterans on New Arcturus alone. You can't watch all of us. I took a step forward. The guards moved, but Koreth gestured them back. Unless you're watching me specifically. Unless you knew I lived near that alley. Unless you counted on me being there. The pieces clicked together as I said them. The sick realization. You set this up, I said slowly. You knew I'd be walking home, knew I'd hear her scream. You counted on me stopping, on me fighting, on there being a human to blame when things went wrong. These are fantasies. 3 operatives, I continued. 2 Vrel and a human. The Vrel were muscle, disposable. But the human was wearing obsidian circle colors. They only work for one person on this council. They only work for you. Threx's skin went perfectly still. Fight or flight response. He chose fight. So what if I did? His voice was cold now, all pretense gone. So what if I arranged for the research to be intercepted? The Grand Marshal's pet project, shield technology that would end any hope of human expansion. We should be crushing your species, not negotiating with them. Your children playing with weapons you don't understand, and you'll destroy yourselves and everyone around you. Yet here I stand, I said quietly, not destroying anything, not threatening anyone, just trying to save one life. One life. Threx laughed, bitter and sharp. One life against millions, against the stability of the ascendancy, against order that has stood for millennia, and you're too stupid to see it. Maybe I am, maybe we all are, us stupid humans. We don't think in millennia, we think in moments, in choices, in whether we can look at ourselves in the mirror and recognize what we've become. I looked around the chamber. You've built an empire on logic and calculation, on weighing lives against power, and you've forgotten something important in all those thousands of years. And what's that? Human. The old counselor with the black skin spoke for the first time, his voice ancient and curious. That power without purpose is just cruelty. That order without compassion is just tyranny. That all your logic and strategy and careful planning means nothing if you won't stop when someone screams for help. Silence fell over the chamber. I could feel it, the shift. Something had changed. Koreth spoke, his voice measured and final. Councillor Threx, you will surrender yourself to military custody pending investigation into conspiracy, attempted murder, and treason. Your assets are frozen. Your security clearance is revoked. You are stripped of your position on this council, effective immediately. Threx didn't fight, didn't argue. He just looked at me with something like hatred mixed with respect. You've won today, human. But this won't stop the war. Too many of us want it. Too many of your people want it. One act of heroism won't change the tide of history. Maybe not, I said, but it changes today, and tomorrow, and all the days after. That's how you change history, one choice at a time, one person at a time, one moment where you decide to give a damn. They took him away. Koreth turned to the council. Ida, this human, Marcus Chen, acted with honor and courage when he could have walked away. He risked his life to protect a member of the royal family. He brings evidence of conspiracy at great personal cost, and he stands here before this council and reminds us of something we've forgotten in our certainty and power. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I didn't expect. Respect. That honor is not exclusive to the Calthrine. That courage is not owned by any one species, and that sometimes the greatest wisdom is knowing when to act without calculation, without strategy, without concern for cost. He placed one of his forehands over his chest in a gesture I didn't recognize. Marcus Chen, the Ascendancy owes you a debt. Name your price. I thought about it, about everything I could ask for: money, status, a way off this station, a new life. I want you to remember this, I said. And when you're planning your wars and strategies and expansion, I want you to remember that there's a human on New Arcturus who saved your daughter because it was the right thing to do. Not for reward, not for recognition, just because she needed help. I paused. And I want you to ask yourself what kind of galaxy we're building where that's surprising. Koreth studied me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a sound like breaking ice, startling and genuine. You're dangerous, Marcus Chen. Not because you're violent, not because you're unpredictable, but because you make us question ourselves. And that's more threatening than any weapon. Good, I said. You should question yourselves. We all should. Xylith stood, moving to stand beside her father. Her skin was blazing with patterns I was starting to recognize. Pride, joy, hope. I propose we offer Marcus Chen a position, she said. Royal Guard, personal protection for the research division. Someone who understands what we're trying to accomplish, someone who will fight for what's right instead of what's convenient. Absolutely not, said 3 councillors simultaneously. Approved, said Koreth, overriding them all. With full diplomatic immunity and salary commensurate with his rank as Defender of the Crown, he'll have access to upper levels, embassy facilities, and the same protections afforded to royal family members. He looked at me. If he accepts. I thought about my coffin apartment, about Chang's bar, about a year spent disappearing into nothing. I thought about Xylith's scream in the dark, about the feeling of purpose I'd thought I'd lost forever. I accept, I said, on one condition, which is, I still live on level 47, I still drink at Chang's. I still walk the same streets and know the same people, because that's who I am. And if you want me to work for you, you're getting all of it, the grunt, the drunk, the guy who makes stupid choices because they feel right. I met his gaze. I'm not going to become something I'm not just to fit your court. Another long silence. Then Koreth smiled, a strange, sharp expression on Calthrine features. I wouldn't want you any other way, Sergeant Chen. They released me an hour later. No charges, no trial, just a data pad with my new credentials and a comcode for Xylith. I walked out of the embassy into dawn light, feeling like I'd aged 10 years in 2 days. My ribs ached, my head hurt. Every muscle in my body screamed at me, and I felt better than I had in a year. Chang was opening the bar when I arrived. He took one look at me and poured 2 drinks. So, he asked. So I saved a princess, exposed a conspiracy, and got a job working for the people who want to conquer Earth. Normal Tuesday for you, then? I laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, something like that. You know this won't end well, Chang said seriously. You've made yourself visible. important. People will come for you now. The ones who want the war. The ones who hate what you represent. Let them come. That's not sobriety talking, Marcus. That's the same death wish that brought you here. No. I looked at the drink in my hand, then set it down untouched. I'm not looking to die anymore, Chang. I'm looking to live, to matter, to remember why I put on the uniform in the first place. I stood, leaving the drink on the bar. I'll see you around. But I think I'm done hiding. I walked out into the rain of level 47, into the crowds and the noise and the beautiful, desperate chaos of the lower levels. Somewhere above, in the spire, was a princess who believed in me, a marshal who thought I might be worth something, a galaxy that was watching. They thought humans were violent, impulsive, barely controlled animals who destroy ourselves and everyone around us. Maybe some of us were. Maybe I had been. But standing in that alley, hearing that scream, I'd remembered something important, something worth more than all their logic and strategy and ancient wisdom. I'd remembered what it meant to give a damn, and that, in the end, was the most human thing I could do.